Hey guys, welcome back to Home Built, and I thought it was about time we gave Harry a bit more love. Alright guys, welcome back, and it's been a while since I've done anything on Harry, and Harry's been a bit used and abused lately. Basically, we only have 2 registered cars between Mr. Jeff and myself, and one is our daily driver Macan, and the other one is Harry. So whenever I've got the Macan at work, then Mrs. Jeff drives Harry to work. So Harry's been getting a fair bit of use lately, but and not a lot of maintenance, and it started to show. We started getting a bit of smell in the garage, and I just got underneath Harry, and I'll take you and show you right now. So I jacked Harry up, and all I could see was a drip. And there's actually quite a fair bit of dripping coming from the bottom of the tank. I've obviously scraped it a few times now, a few times too many, and that is the result. So it looks like we need a new fuel tank in Harry. So let's get this one out and see if we can do a bit more maintenance while we're here.
So I start by removing the bash plate that's covering the fuel pump under the car, and then getting under the bonnet and removing the cross brace that I have in my car and all of my travel tools, spare tyre, etc.
Alright, so of course, before I noticed that Harry had a hole in the tank, I filled it up. So we have the bulk of a full tank of fuel in the car, which means I have to do something with it. You can't remove it and disconnect it when it's still full of fuel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the fuel pump, disconnect that. Mine is a Raceworks fuel pump with AN fittings. So I've got a length of push lock hose with an AM fitting on it, dash 8, that'll fit onto the fittings there. I'm going to disconnect the fitting, connect this up to the fuel pump, and then I'm going to suck the fuel out of the tank using the fuel pump and fill up the jerry can and do that over and over until the tank is empty. Of course, Harry has a very large fuel tank. The standard fuel tank on these early cars is 84 litres, which is far bigger than most modern cars, which is good at some stages, but not as good when you have to empty it all. All right, well, that was a complete shambles. Tip for young players, don't disconnect the fuel line unless you're sure which direction it flows. And I spent ages trying to put a fitting on that wasn't going on, not realizing that I'd actually hadn't looked at it properly, and I disconnected the wrong end. So I'm trying to plug up the end going to the engine, and the end going to the fuel tank was leaking fuel the whole time. I'm completely drenched in petrol, which is not very smart. And yeah, and I had the wrong side anyway, so I had to put it apart twice. Got fuel everywhere. So don't do that. Make sure you know which way it is. But now I finally have the petrol tank connected up. So I finally have the fuel pump disconnected and connected into the jerry can. So now I'm going to run the fuel pump and fill up the jerry can, and then I can decant some fuel over. And yeah, oh, my back is killing me. The petrol burnt me horribly. Ugh.
So here I'm using the power probe to bypass the fuel pump fuse and basically power the circuit to the fuel pump and fill up my jerry can, spilling petrol everywhere, and decanting it into the Alfa and also into the Rockster, basically just sharing the fuel around and then leaving myself with a jerry can to be able to put back into Harry again when I'm finished. Then I undo the bolts to the fuel tank. A bit of other stuff that was done off camera is also unbolting my aircon compressor, which is the electric aircon compressor, and also removing my battery out of the engine bay. With a bit of wrestling and manoeuvring, I managed to fold the aircon compressor out of the way without disconnecting the gas lines, and wrestle the fuel tank out of the engine bay. Once it's out, it was a matter of swapping over the fuel level sender and some of the bits and pieces onto the new fuel tank. Then I've got new foam to seal around the base of the fuel tank as well, and a new fuel filter for the bottom.
Alright, so I've transferred over most of the parts of the fuel tanks, but I realised that they're actually very slightly different. This tank here has the inlet and outlet right next to each other in the middle, and this tank has one on one side and one on the other side, and one of them is threaded, so I'm going to have to make sure that I can connect them up somehow. But I've got the new foam put in on the tank and everything transferred over, so let's put it in the car and at least that part will be done.
So putting the new tank in is basically a reverse of taking the old one out, wrestling the aircon compressor out of the way again and lining it back up. Bolting in the 3 bolts around the edge of the tank, and then put the aircon compressor back in, connect up the fuel filler and also the breather lines, the electrical connection to the fuel sender, level sender, and battery in, etc.
Well, it's in, and that was a much bigger pain than it needed to be. Because I was too lazy to move the Alpha off of the hoist, I just did it on jack stands. If I'd done it on the hoist, it would have made life so much easier. And I have it here. I was just too lazy to put the car together, get it moving, to get it out of the way and swap the cars around. I thought, oh, I'd just do it on jack stands. It'll be easy. But it's done. I have a brand new tank installed in the car with some new lines because the inlet and outlet were different. So I had to make up some new Raceworks lines. That was pretty straightforward. And everything is bolted back in again. So now spare tyre in and we'll move on to something else. All right, so while the fuel system is still empty, I'm going to change the filters over. I have a 75 micron coming out of the tank and then a finer 10 micron Raceworks filter up here. I've got new filter inserts for them, so let's get these filters out, change the inserts over, and then we can button it all back up again. Well and truly due for fuel filters. This was, yeah, pretty horrible and manky on the ends, but cleaned up and new filters going back in. All right, so the next thing I want to tackle today is my sway bar bushings on the front are completely toast. I noticed last time I went to a track day in Harry, I was actually lifting the inside front wheel because the sway bar was just basically not doing what it's supposed to do. So I'm going to get in on that and replace the sway bar bushings. And that's where I want to actually briefly talk about the suspension in these old 911s. I have heard so many people who want to upgrade the suspension on their car and they go to town with these polybronze bushings and bigger torsion bars and all sorts of stuff and then complain that it's absolutely horrible to drive on the road. And I know lots of people have actually spent a whole bunch of money putting it back to stock. If your main purpose for your old 911 is fun road driving and you know, getting out in the twisties and stuff like that, and you might do the odd track day, I am a firm believer that the factory suspension on the 911s is really good. And if your car's handling like junk, it's probably because it's all worn out. And so many people, it's worn out, you upgrade it. I think put it back to stock is the way to go. Now, if you're building a track car, then all bets are off. Go your hardest and go all stiff. But on the rough old country roads that I'm driving on, I definitely find that good stock suspension, just nice, fresh stock suspension is really good. Surprisingly, Porsche actually did a pretty good job when they did this originally. So let's get under there now, pull the sway bar off and replace all of the bushings. So hopefully next time it actually keeps its all 4 wheels down in the corners.
So to remove the sway bar, it's just a matter of unbolting the brackets from either side, and then you need to sort of wrestle it out from the forward lower control arm mounts. Now I'm just reshaping the bash plate that's underneath the car. I never really did that when I restored the car, so I thought I'd give it a little bit of a tidy up. Hit it with a wire brush and get rid of all of the corrosion. Same on the sway bar. Then a bit of a coat of Colgate black to try and halt any other rust that may appear. Now I'm adding some rubber grease to the new bushings, and you feed one side of the sway bar in first, a bit further than you need, so you can get the other end in, and that's all the front is held in by, and the rear is held in by the brackets that are bolted in. Then it's the bash plate covering the fuel pump to seal that in and top the fuel up and ready to go.
Well, it's not leaking, so now is the time to start it up, take it for a test drive, and we'll just see if it works. Well, we have the fuel tank changed, we have the sway bar bushes upgraded, and some filters and stuff. Harry is back running again and doing well. Hopefully the Ferrari will be engineered on the road soon as well. So hopefully you enjoyed that. Do all the things, like, subscribe, join us on Patreon, and we'll see you next time. All right, guys. See ya.